We are recording and I have a counter. Hello again, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another edition of Wrestling with Rusty right here on YouTube. And today we have the son of the legendary Harley race, Justin Race, to talk all things Harley. And we've tried to do this for months and we've had technical problems. We've had cerebral palsy problems. I've had wheelchair problems and Justin had work problems. So as of June 26, 2025, as we're recording this, we finally got together. Justin, thank you for your patience and welcome, brother.
You are very well. You're welcome for your. I thank you for your patience, and I appreciate it. I really, really do. I feel like we did an hour Broadway just to get on here. I'm wore out.
Yeah, me too. Sorry.
My dad does the Broadways. I don't do the Broadways.
Yeah, exactly. Unfortunately, the Rusty Loudermilk YouTube channel is operating without a technical engineer. That's part of the problem too, I guess.
Well, that's okay. I find some 7-year-old kid. He'll teach you how to do it.
Amen. As a guy that's 56, and I think you're what, 54 or something like that?
Correct, 54. Yeah.
That we're past this new technical generation thing. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, we're kind of hit right in the middle of it. It's like kids expect us to know because we're young enough, but we don't know. We got to ask them to help us. And then our parents have absolutely no idea. So we're like stuck right in the middle.
Yeah.
Bunch of know-it-alls and a bunch of know-nothings. And we're in the middle going, what?
As they say in North Carolina, where I come from, damned if you do and damned if you don't.
No.
Yes,
yeah,
indeed.
I've heard that a few times.
Yeah. But anyway, the people want to hear about Harley. So before I tell you my situation, how I came familiar with Harley, I must tell you, I've watched you on other podcasts more important than mine. And I got to tell you, you probably answered every question in the book. So I'll try to do some things that you might not answered. But the first question would be, what would you say to somebody that only knew the promo voice and the I'm going to kick your ass Harley race? What was the difference between the public persona and the dad Harley race?
Well, one thing that was the same that was the voice. My dad could, Flair, I'm coming down to get you. Or, Justin, you're late for school. It all came out with the same voice.
Yes.
So when he cut promos, I just listened to him. It wasn't any different than him telling me to go get him a glass of milk or something.
On the original DVD collection that they put out, WWE made when they first started the WWE network, I think back in 2014, they made a Ric Flair DVD. I don't know the title, but if I find it, I'll get it to you. But somewhere on there, they have the build up to Starrcade 83 and all of that. And they have Harley cutting a promo with the promos back in that day for Jim Crockett Promotions was cut at their office, 421 Briar Bend Drive, back in.
Been there a few times.
Oh, okay. You had?
Oh, yeah.
And it was cut in their garage. So they got Harley in front of a backdrop and he's cutting this promo. And then all of a sudden at the end, he says, he gets a wad of the cash in his hands and he goes, "Somebody take the damn money."
Yeah.
And I'm like, Jesus.
I know that promo.
Yeah. But
I watched that promo.
Oh, you did? So even if I can't find the DVD, you've seen it 100 times, right?
Oh, yeah. Well, I was standing there when it happened, so I mean, behind the camera back.
Oh, you were actually there that day?
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
I was, I told you I'm writing a book. It's called Don't Tell Your Mother. And it's about exactly what it sounds like. A bunch of stories about things that Dad and I would do. And don't tell your mother. And I would. But let's see here. Well, the build up to Starrcade was probably made more prominent almost by McMahon trying to steal my dad from it.
Yeah, exactly. And now I've heard the story 100 times, but I want you to tell it from your perspective. On my podcast. I know you've told it on other podcasts, but would you confirm what I've heard 100 times, that Vince McMahon attempted, he did not succeed, but he did attempt to pay Harley Race $250,000 not to show up at Jim Crockett's Starrcade?
Correct.
And to Harley's credit, I think it was a guy named Chris Cruz and Bruce Mitchell interviewed Harley back in 2009, I think it was.
Mm-hmm.
It was a DVD made for highspots.com at the Charlotte Legends Fan Fest, promoted by Greg Price, in which Harley and Rick talked Starrcade and their career. And at that point in 2009, Harley admitted that something went down and said he tackled Vince and all that. But to Harley's credit,
actually, the Vince tried to tackle Dad, and Vince got put to sleep.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Excuse me for saying this, but how? I'm just saying the way anybody else would. How much of a damn dumbass do you have to be? Not just Vince McMahon, but any man to attack Harley Race.
I don't think it's a matter of intelligence as much as alcohol.
Well, yeah, that might be true too.
I think that probably played a big part in it. No, he just tried. I mean, it wasn't as serious as it sounds. I don't, but it wasn't like there was a death match in the parking lot. But yeah, Vince tried to tackle him. He was mad. His final answer to Vince was given in the bathroom. I think there's Dad was interviewed, and he said he might have told this story, but during the dinner, my mom and Dad and Vince, and of course Linda McMahon, our director of education right now, or secretary of education, he and Dad went in to use the restroom, and Vince kind of was prodding him on an answer and whatever, and they were washing their hands, and Dad looked at Vince in the mirror, like this, and he said, "You see that man in that mirror?" And Vince said, "Yeah." He said, "I got to look at that man tomorrow too."
Oh, great answer. I don't mean just great answer by you, but great answer by Harley.
Oh yeah, I'm just repeating what Dad said.
Yeah.
So and then I think that kind of ticked him off a little bit. Whatever. They got out in the parking lot, and Vince tried to, I guess in collegiate wrestling we'd have called it a double leg, or maybe a duck under. And he just went after his legs, and Dad maneuvered him I basically went under and put him in a reverse sleeper. And he said, "I could have ended all this bullshit right there." That'd have been the end.
Yeah, exactly. Would you also confirm? I saw the appearance you did on Dark Side of the Ring, you and your mom, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I heard this on Dark Side of the Ring. I've studied. I must tell you, I am a Justin race mark, but before that, I was a Harley race mark. So I think I've studied almost everything. But can you confirm for my podcast that Harley was one of the 3 owners of the Kansas City territory,
Central States Wrestling?
Yeah. And from that, apparently, that was on or about the time that McMahon was starting his national expansion in '84, and somebody got wind to Harley and said, "Hey, Hogan's coming into your territory," and Harley got pissed and got a gun and went or tried to set the ring on fire or something. Can you help out with that story?
Another bit of an exaggeration that just travels around the internet and gets a life of its own.
Okay.
No, he didn't have a gun. Dad told this story actually too. He's told what actually happened. Actually happened is, he went down to the building. He went in the back, course, into the dressing room. Once he walked in the dressing room, it just went silent. And Terry was standing over, facing, away from him, and everyone stopped talking. He didn't really realize it. Dad went up behind him and slapped him like open hand right here on the ribs from behind so hard it knocked him over. He hit the ground, and he's on his butt, turned around, about ready to kill someone. He turns around, sees who it was, and he just started backpedaling through the dressing room on his butt, trying to get away from him.
Oh my God!
And so that was pretty much it. I mean, he just scared the shit out of Hogan.
So
the gun stuff, all those guys carry guns. Heck, there's concealed carry. I mean, if he had a gun in the car, I don't know. But it wasn't for the purpose of shooting anyone at the event.
Yeah. Rosario, hold on a second, man. Answer this call for me. Excuse me. I'm sorry to have. I'll call her back and see what she wanted. Tell me about it. I'm on the air with Justin. I can't talk right now. Go in there and call her back. And no, you got to call back. Okay, I'm back, Justin. So, the actual setting fire didn't happen. It was just going in the dressing room.
Set a ring on fire. I mean, the first I heard of that, I'm like, well, how, unless you like doused it in gasoline or something. What is flammable on a ring? I guess the canvas, but canvas isn't very flammable.
Yeah.
There's nothing. It's like, how the hell would you start a ring on fire?
Yeah. Well, that's why we have you to set the record straight.
Well, that was the common sense part. When I saw that part, I'm like, set that ring on fire.
So, Harley is respected by anybody that really knew about wrestling, not only in that time frame, but even before when Harley started. So the old saying is most of the NWA promoters couldn't agree on a ham sandwich. So even though, and I'm not just saying this because you're his son and I'm your friend now and everything. I'm saying it because people say this in the business that Harley Race was the NWA. In other words, they didn't tell Harley what to do. Harley told them what he was going to do. Can you confirm that, please?
Yes. Yeah. They could have their board meetings and they can do whatever they want, but when Dad got to the building, he decided what was going to happen. Or the tour in Japan or whatever. That's why they sent Dad over with Flair to Japan several times, and the Dad wasn't wrestling. Dad was there to make sure that the belt came back to America.
Oh, I didn't know that. So, in other words, let me not to interrupt you, but let me paraphrase what I think you're saying. You're saying they were afraid that somebody was going to shoot on Flair and take the title, and they sent Harley to protect Flair from getting shot on, right?
For lack of a better word, yeah. They sent him to make sure the title came back to America. And they also, one of the reasons he was the world champion for so long was, there was a bit of the territory business was still, this is before Vince and all, the territories were running strong, but he was the troubleshooter. Territory was having trouble that they'd send Dad in, to get a big house or to settle a dispute between some guys or whatever. So, he was kind of like they gave him, they wanted him, I should say, to be the champion for quite some time because they knew that no matter where he went in the world, the belt would come home with him.
I believe that.
It doesn't matter where he was on the planet or in the country. If someone really tried to, the only thing that anyone that ever shot on my dad got was hurt.
Oh, man. Well, that brings up an interesting point. I don't know if you've ever met a man named Les Thatcher.
Oh, yeah.
Les is a good guy. I used to sit in the dressing rooms with Les and Paul Jones and many others that are now passed. Les is still around, thank God. But Les has a saying. He's like, Harley Race was a gentleman, and Harley Race's word was his bond. But I'm not going to use the F word, but don't effing piss him off.
Yeah.
And Terry Funk said one time, and it's also on a different High Spots DVD, but I hope to get it because I want a copy. And if I do, I'll make sure that I know the specific quote, but I think it was somebody doing the interview, whoever it was asking Terry to explain to him what Harley Race meant to the business. And he said, Harley Race, the world's fastest car driver. Harley Race, the world's greatest beer drinker. And then Harley Race, the world's greatest everything. So I say all that to make this point. So from everybody but Harley, and I'll tell you why it's but Harley in a minute. From everybody but Harley, they all say Harley Race was the greatest wrestler on God's green earth. That just wasn't a slogan. Mm-hmm. But from Harley's perspective, he was recorded on video and DVD and other places saying that he thought Ric Flair was the greatest. Why do you think Harley might have said that?
My dad's a humble guy.
Yeah.
He when he said that, they both agree that he was the toughest, most durable champion there ever was. He taught Rick how to be a champion. So in effect, if people decide, they can flip a coin, but if they want to decide who's the greatest wrestler on earth, well, if it's Rick, guess who taught him?
Yeah, exactly.
And he did not like breaking him into the business or anything, but when Rick, first of all, Dad gave Rick his opportunity in the NWA by telling them this kid needs to be, moving up in the card. And finally, when Dad felt that he was ready to start taking title shots, and he did, and he was a hell of a wrestler. Dad took it. I don't want to make it sound like he was like his teacher or something, but he did. I think, and even Rick would admit this, he taught Rick how to be a champion inside the ring and outside the ring.
I agree, and so does many others.
So, who's the greatest? I don't know. I know Dad was the toughest, and Rick will tell you that, and so will Dusty Rhodes.
Well, probably most of the modern fans, if you set them down and said a Mount Rushmore of the greatest wrestlers, they would probably say things like The Rock, Steve Austin, John Cena, and either Dusty Rhodes or Ric Flair. But for any of us, I say any of us, not just you, but my generation and spending time around guys like Les and Abe Jacobs and Ricky Steamboat and many, many others that I don't want to ramble on here. But bottom line is everybody says every single damn time. And again, I'm not just saying this because you're his son in front of me. I'm telling you the truth. Every damn time they say Harley Race was a true credit to our business. And then if they don't say Harley Race was a true credit to our business, they say Harley Race was our business.
Yeah.
So with that being said, I think they would put Harley over Rick, with apologies to Rick. You know what I mean?
I think most of them would. I mean, one of the reasons that I decided to, really get out there and start pursuing keeping my dad's legacy alive is because of technology. Several years back, yes. I started getting questions from kids. They're 25 years old. They're asking me about my dad or tell me my dad's their favorite wrestler. And I'm like, he was retired long before you were born. And they say, oh, I see him on YouTube all the time. And I was like, oh. So, years go on or time goes on and technology improves. And here I start just getting messages from people all over the world. Oh, your dad's great and this and that and whatever. And I saw the opportunity to ensure that his legacy always lives and always remains through technology. And so I got out there and started talking to people and started going to shows and started to, do autograph things for people, doing podcasts, stuff like that. And the interest for my father keeps growing exponentially every year. And the interest in what I was originally talking about, the interest in old school wrestling has become, it just grows all the time. People that they have a choice. They want to watch the product today. They can watch the product today. Personally, I don't know what a 10-foot ladder has to do with a wrestling match, but they have an opportunity to see what they want. And a lot of people are going back to old school where they'll see an old school wrestling match and see how different it is from today, from the acrobatics and all the stuff they do today. And they like it, even the kids. I mean, like I said, 25-year-old kids, they love it. And so his as old school wrestling, kind of it has a resurgence in America or whatever around the world.
Yes,
Dad is old school wrestling. he kind of represents that. So as old school wrestling gains in popularity, so does my father.
Yeah, and I think it's okay. I don't think you'll mind me to mention this on the podcast here. You said to me one, the fans might not know, but we're linking up through a system called StreamYard, and when you link up to that, because I'm in Pittsburgh and Justin's in Kansas City, but when you do that, you have to send the person a link. And long story short, when I send you the link and you link up, we start talking a little bit beforehand. But my point is this, and I lost my train of thought. But
that's all right.
But I too think that old school wrestling has a resurgence. I just wish there was somebody with some money that could come along and say, okay, we're going to do wrestling as the new third brand, but do it legitimately the way Harley and others of his generation did it. I think it would succeed, don't you?
Yeah, well, yes, I do. I think that's kind of the void that the indies fulfill a lot. Like SICW, Herb Simmons in St. Louis. I mean, he runs a great promotion. Good wrestlers, great wrestlers, guys that are going to move up in the world, move up in the business. And he tries to keep it as old school as he can.
That's good.
That really is. There's several independents out there that are that are reasonably well known, but they are trying to bring wrestling back to what it was. Actually, a wrestling match. Actually, a story.
Well,
a wrestling match is a story, and they don't tell a story anymore. They're just a series of flying 10 feet over a ladder and this and that and whatever, and 5 minutes later it's over, and that's that.
Yeah, and what they also do is once in a while they might throw an old school Harley race match type match in there where it's legitimate. You think, okay, finally somebody on a national scale is bringing back old school wrestling, and then the very next match is somebody wrestling on Halloween candy with thumbtacks and the ladder you're talking about, and it's like, oh my God! In other words, they tease you like, okay, we're going to do old.
Yeah. Well, that's one thing that I do like about Herb's promotion. Is on Sunday nights, he often will stick an old school match in, or a portion of it or whatever. You see Koloff or my dad or the Funks or whatever, just an old school match with couple old school wrestling, and he'll cut it into his show and show a little bit of it, and then you see the wrestling matches from his promotion, and those guys are doing pretty good. Those guys work well.
Yeah. Have you seen any of your? I guess it was your dad's at one point, the WLW or Harley Race Academy thing.
No, I don't. That's on the way other side of the state. It's on the near St. Louis.
Oh, okay.
Or north of St. Louis, a little ways. So I don't. No, I'm not involved in it at all.
Oh, that's sad. That's sad.
Well, it's like the Harley Race Academy without Harley Race.
Well, there you go too. I mean, how you gonna call it? And I know what they would say. They'd say, "Well, we're trying to honor Harley." Well,
yeah.
Let me just say this without bashing anybody because I don't know them, but you just said it. It's not the Harley Race Academy without Harley Race. So I wish they would change the name. Even if they wanted to call it World League Wrestling Academy, that'd be better than calling it the Harley Race Academy, since Harley's no longer around.
Yeah. You can't stop anybody from doing it. Do I agree with it? No. But I mean, if you wanted to have, some an academy like honoring, or something like that, like he was the Grand Master at one time, and here we are 4 generations later, and it's still called the Harley Race Academy. Yeah. I can understand how that can happen. I mean, how that would look, but you don't have Dad there. He had his head. Obviously, he couldn't train. He couldn't even. Well, he was in a wheelchair. Yeah. For the last several years of his life, he wasn't training for the last 10 years of his life. But he had head trainers, and they trained how he told them to train. They didn't go out there and just wing it. And he got on them if they didn't train guys how he wanted them trained. So if you take my dad from that equation, now you have trainers that are training on what they can remember my dad taught them, and then the rest of it's them just doing their own thing.
Yeah. Well, like I said, in my own personal life, I have cerebral palsy. I can't walk or stand, and never been able to walk or stand. But that'd be the equivalent of somebody asking me to go paint their house. I mean, no, go ahead and laugh. That's why I'm glad you laughing, because it just wouldn't make sense. Well, if you apply that to the Harley Race Academy, how do you have Harley Race without? I mean, how do you have the Harley Race Academy without Harley Race? And without going into this, I've told you privately that there's a guy there that, without mentioning his name, he says that he's Harley's son, and I vehemently disagree with that, because I want to say here on my podcast, with Justin's permission, that Justin Race is the only descendant, for lack of, not only descendant, but the only son of Harley Race.
Yes, I am.
Any
the who you're talking about, his name is Jason, actually. Homer, Jason Homer Jones, or Homer Jason Jones, something like that. Anyway, no relation to the family. They concocted this Leland Ray. Leland was my father's name, and they concocted that in the last parts of I don't know how mentally acute my father was when he started doing this Leland Race business. But I do know, because my dad told me, that he was supposed to have stopped that when Dad passed, and he continues to do it 6 years later, and that's what makes me mad. If my dad didn't say that to him, that's news to me. Because my father told me that can I ask him, Leland Race, you're letting someone use your middle name? And he said, yeah, we had a talk, but the moral of the talk was, once I pass away, that stops. And one of the reasoning behind that, there is a reason. When my father first broke into the business, he wrestled under several names. He wrestled under Jack Long. They had like two brothers, the Long brothers. He was Jack, and I can't remember what the other guy was, John probably. And he wrestled as the Great Mortimer. He wrestled with a mask. And one day, my grandpa, Jay, my dad's father, sat my dad down and he said, why are you out there trying to make a name for someone else? And from that moment forward, my dad wrestled under Harley Race, whether it was Handsome or the King, but it was always Harley Race, because he's making a name for himself. And so this Jason is doing exactly to my father and I what my father's dad told my father not to do. If that makes sense. Sorry about the circuitousness there, but my dad's dad told him, wrestle under your own darn name. And Jason, and my dad basically told Jason that after he can use my name, but once I pass, that's the end of that. And he continues to use it, and I don't like it.
No, and I think anybody that has any respect for not only Harley, but old school wrestling in general, if they knew about it, and I'm trying not to say too much about him, because this is supposed to be about Harley, number one, and number two, I don't want to promote somebody that's not a race, but out of respect for Harley, he should quit. I don't know whether you can do anything illegally or not, but he should quit that,
Oh, yeah. Well, I can do what I can do legally. And it's pretty well in the last year or two, I think it's pretty well known now who I am and that he's not my brother.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you ever heard of Tyrus?
Yes.
Yeah, big old guy.
Yeah.
Nice guy. Well, he came in, he does comedy shows. And he's a stand-up comic. And he came into Kansas City here, not quite a year ago or whatever. But I got his number through a friend and whatever, and texted him. And I said, hey, this is who I am. And he was a NWA champion too. And So I told him I was going to come up and see him.
Yeah.
I told him I was going to come up and see him when he was in town. And so he did his show, and I kind of just sat in the audience. Hilarious guy. And he did his show, and then people, he did a meet and greet afterward or whatever. Once everyone finally left the room, I got up and I started walking up toward him on the stage. One of his guys, not like a security or anything, just kind of looked at me funny, like, "Where are you going?" And Tyrus from about 40 feet away said, "You can't tell that's Harley's son. He looks just like him." I didn't even introduce myself. That's how I met Tyrus. Is I just started walking toward him, and he knew who I was.
Yeah. Well, from my perspective, not only seeing you on the many podcasts that you and your mom have done, you more so than your mom, but cool, both of you. I can tell, just even if you didn't tell me you were Harley's son, and even if I didn't know that, just looking at your eyes, you can tell you're Harley's son. In other words, you don't need a DNA test, is my point.
No, I don't think so. In fact, when after my mom and my father were divorced, my father met a lady who, very nice lady, who became his wife after a number of years. Her name was BJ. But the first time that I ever, Dad, I have a girlfriend. I'd like you to meet her. And I walked up to her, very kind, she's a very tiny girl too. It was funny with my dad. She was 4'11". So with my dad, dad just looked like a big bear next to her. And first thing she said when when I introduced myself, she looked over at my father. She said, "Boy, you can't deny that kid."
Oh, okay. She said the same thing that I just did, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Pretty much. So, I mean, it's an honor for me. It didn't bother me at all. So I appreciate it. They called him Handsome, so why not? Why wouldn't you want to be named after a guy named Handsome?
Exactly. I was about to ask you about BJ, but you just solved that. Now, I want to ask you another question. And anything I ask, if you don't want to answer it, just say I can't answer that, and I'll move on. I'm not here to hurt anybody in any way. But
go ahead.
Do you think that Harley's dedication? I mean, because the people that I know that knew Harley better than I did and worked with him will all say that there was nobody on the planet that was more dedicated to the wrestling business and gave his life to the wrestling business more than Harley Race. In other words, Hulk Hogan made more money than, say, Harley did, as an example. But Hulk Hogan never was dedicated to the wrestling business like Harley would, and neither would nobody else. So having said that, do you think
it's hard to be dedicated to a wrestling business when you have one move?
You must have been talking
that big old leg drop. That's all he had.
Yeah, you must have been talking to way back in 1999. I had the privilege of also meeting. I lost it. Lou Thez. And Lou Thez said then, and said on many DVDs and other interviews, he said Hulk Hogan didn't know a wrist lock from a wrist watch.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah. So,
Terry, he was, he was a really nice guy, though. I mean, Terry Hogan was extremely nice guy. Here, I'll put this in perspective a little bit for you.
Okay.
This is right during the height of Hulkamania. Dad's the king. He was wrestling the Meadowlands, which is where the New England Patriots used to play. I think they used to play there, up in New Jersey.
The New York Giants and the New York Jets play in the Meadowlands.
Oh, okay. All right. Sorry for Northeasterners. I don't. I'm as familiar with stadiums around there. Exactly. Anyway, so we get to the airport. I can't remember if we flew into New York or Baltimore, wherever. And Dad's wrestling bag didn't come off the plane. So he carried a big old stainless steel Halliburton, they called it. They were made by Halliburton. They were basically impregnable cases. A lot of the wrestlers carried them. So anyway, his didn't come off the plane. Well, what are you gonna do? So we they had a limousine there, and they took us, by limousine to the Meadowlands. So he gets there, and I walk back in the dressing room with him like I normally do. I didn't spend a lot of time out in the arenas. I liked hanging out in the dress. I mean, even as a little kid, I was always back there. I just liked hanging out with the guys. They were fun. So anyway, Dad's talking to some of the guys. He's like, I don't know what the hell I'm gonna wear. I don't. My bank. And Hogan hears this. Yeah, like I said, this is Hulkamania time. So Hogan's voice booms above the dressing room and the whole backstage. Anybody who isn't wrestling tonight, go to the airport and find the boss's luggage.
Huh.
And that was, yeah.
That's a funny story.
Well, yeah, it shows you that even Vince and Hogan during Hulkamania, they knew who the boss was. Dad used to,
if he and I'll expand on that.
Oh, I was just gonna say they're in a match. He's in a match, and it wasn't going how he wanted it, or somebody was goofing around and not doing what they're supposed to be doing. He'd get him in a wrist lock or a headlock or whatever, and he'd lean down right next to their ear. Don't piss me off. And they got right back in line.
I can imagine. Would you tell the story that you told it in other places? I forget where you told it, but would you tell the story that about the time that somebody over in Japan, I don't know the man's name, but somebody didn't do a finish the way Harley wanted, and Harley took Rick or somebody in the dressing room and like, oh, I knew who it was now. It was Giant Baba. Baba didn't do something that Harley wanted, and Harley goes into the dressing room and slaps Baba so bad. I think it was Baba so bad that Harley knocked him out in the dressing room floor. You ever heard that story?
No. My dad and Bubba were Shonai. Bubba was Shonai was his first name. Were very good friends. If one of them messed up in a match, then no, they weren't going to take it out on the other one. But then there were two that didn't mess up though, also. But I mean, when Bubba came to America, his wife Matoko, and he would stay at our house when he came to America.
Well, then it must have been somebody else on the Japanese roster.
I don't know what. So I don't. No, it wasn't Bubba. I know that. It's very possible it was someone else, but it wasn't Bubba.
But that brings us back to the overall point, which is, if you were wrestling Harley Race, you did what Harley said. And to your point about the boss tag, from the people that I talked to, there were only two people in the entire wrestling industry that had the right to be called the boss. One, of course, was Andre the Giant, and the other one was Harley Race.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody will dispute that fact.
No, except that Andre called Dad boss.
Oh, he did?
Yeah. First time Dad ever had him up over his head for a body slam in Houston in 1978. He had on. I mean, there's a photo, you can find it on the internet, but I mean, he had him in a full body slam. I mean, it wasn't a dump over or a flop, like what Hogan did in WrestleMania 3. Kind of just flopping him over. Dad had him right over the top of his head, and Andre was up there. Boss, put me down. Boss, put me down. My dad said, "Shut up, you big son of a bitch. Someone's got to take a picture of this."
Yeah, I'm glad you told that story because sometimes since the WWE back then, WWF was the major territory or company to win the war, they sometimes rewrite history and try to say that the first time that Hogan was slammed was by first time Andre was slammed.
I've seen that before. Terry's he's a very nice guy. I mean, I used to, like, when I'd travel with my father, Dad didn't work out. He figured an hour in the ring at night was enough. But I would go to the gym with Terry and Randy and whatever. They taught me all kinds of stuff about lifting weights and working out and whatever. And he talks the same way in the gym as he does. Hey, brother, you can pick this up. Come on, brother. Everything with brother. So he's always been a very, very nice guy. I mean, there's nothing. I have never had anything against him or whatever. He's always, and they've always been nice to me. But that kind of helps. They're nice to me because of my dad, and not because of my dad, but he's got a good, he's behind a lot of it.
They're going to be nice to you. Yeah, they're going to be nice to you because your last name is Race.
Yeah. Well, I used to be, I thought, because maybe they were scared of him or something. At first, I thought they were scared of him or something. But then I realized it was a respect thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Would you confirm, too, that before the gentleman that wrestled many years as Haku and then later as Ming, M-E-N-G, before he won the King of the Ring, he went and asked Harley, "Can I be the king?" Do you know anything about that?
Vince came to my father and said, who do you want to be king? And Dad said Haku.
Oh, okay, that's how it went.
Same as in 1983 when he passed the NWA torch to Ric Flair. In whatever year that was, he passed the crown to Haku.
Man, that's
like you were saying earlier. That with the NWA and the board could say whatever they wanted, but Dad was the final decision on most of those things. And yeah, Vince ran the business and whatever, but Vince is also a very, very smart man, and very, very smart businessmen don't get there by not making good decisions and not putting good people around them. So it would be an entire waste of talent and everything or anything else you can think of to not have my dad involved in his organization in some way or another, if nothing else, to get the guys to rest, to get the matches to look better, teach the guys how to work the crowd. That just having a guy like him around is like, why wouldn't you want the Jedi Master there when you got a bunch of Jedi candidates in their dressing room?
Yeah, sort of the blind leading the blind, so to speak.
Yeah, well, so he's just a font of wrestling knowledge, and
I think it's important to say here on my podcast that you've said on other shows too, that part of the reason he was that way is not only because he was so dedicated to the business, but because he started training when he was 15 and then went pro at 16. And
2 weeks before he turned 16.
Oh, 2 weeks before he turned 16. Yeah. And then, as I understand it, the pro wrestling business started out of the origins of the carnival. Mm-hmm. And as I understand it, in Harley's case, in the carnivals, you had to wrestle people like from the audience. Mm-hmm. So the carnival people had to have somebody tough like Harley, because I think the thing was you'd win a certain amount of money or something if you could beat. If you could
pay a nickel or pay a quarter or something to beat the guy in the ring, and he was the guy in the ring. So you have no idea who's coming into that ring with you. It could be an ex-military person with combat skills. It could be just some 300-pound big old hillbilly that had about a case and a half of beer in him. Yeah, who knows what you were getting when he even wrestled a bear in the carnival.
Oh my goodness, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Do you? Not that I'm trying to start an argument, nothing, but do you think that your dad's dedication to the wrestling, because anybody that I know says that's the only job that Harley Race ever had. Mm-hmm. So do you think that your dad's dedication to the wrestling business was a main source in what led to the demise of your mom and dad's marriage?
Oh, probably. I mean, it's kind of funny when he traveled all the time. When he was traveling 500,000 miles a year, they were fine. I mean, we traveled with him most of the time. But when he started to wind down in his career and being home a lot more, That's when they got divorced. It was like their whole marriage was predicated on they weren't out together that much or something. It was like exciting to see each other because they hadn't seen each other in a while. Once he was around all the time, I guess it was different. There's my mom's writing.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
My mom's writing a book called Life with a King.
And that's cool.
Yeah, it's a memoir of her memoir about life with my father. From when they met, on, and so that's kind of a historical, more of a historical. But my book's a funny book. My book is a series of story after story after story that funny things that happen that Dad just don't tell your mother. But my mom's is more of an anthology or a historical type perspective on it, and then it's her memoir, so it's obviously her views.
Yeah. I've always wondered too, since your mom wasn't in the wrestling business.
Yeah, she was.
How does one?
You're old. If your dad's in the wrestling business or your husband, you're in the wrestling business.
Yeah, well, I said that wrong. What I should have said was, since she wasn't a worker, do you think that the fact that he had to be gone so much maybe caused a problem, and that if he'd had a regular job and not been in the wrestling business, it might have succeeded better?
Oh, I don't know. I think later in life they probably kind of wish they never got divorced, but that was 25 years after they got divorced.
Yeah.
But the wrestling business is a hard business on the family, yes. And I can't compare that to, like you said, I've always told people what would have been really weird at my house is if my dad was at home for dinner at 6 o'clock and home on the weekends. That would have been weird. So I have nothing I was born into this business. I have nothing I can watch other families and go after school, go to my friend's house and his dad comes home from work and, I watch other families, but that was different. My family, that was normal to me to either be traveling with my father or my father traveling with. That was just how I grew up. I mean, I didn't know any different. He never had a job. Well, I never had another different childhood. I was in the wrestling business I've been in the wrestling business since 9 months before I was born.
Oh my goodness. Well, like I said, I'm only going to try to keep you an hour, but we got 13 minutes left. But let me ask you a question about that.
Yeah.
Do you, I guess what I'm trying to get at is, and I'm not doing a very good job of it.
Take your time.
Is how, since you, okay, here's an easier question than what I was going for, because I can't say what I want to say, but it's just not coming to me. But when you had regular friends whose dad was just the normal average life, did your friends know who Harley Race was? And if so, or if not, how did you deal with it?
Well, I was fortunate in one case in that I was in the same school district from second grade until I graduated from high school. So a lot of my friends I had since the second grade, and they grew up with me. So they grew up with my dad, and they didn't see him as a wrestler or anything else. He was the guy that was made a great steak, and with my mom made chocolate chip pancakes for everyone in the morning if I had a sleepover. That's how they saw him. In fact, someone was mentioning it the other day. I said, I've only heard my father, except for, amongst his, my mom and dad's friends or whatever. I've only heard my father called either the boss, Mr. Race, or the king all my life. Except for my friends. All my friends called him Harley. They were like the only people that wasn't scared just to call. They just called him Harley, and he was just Harley. Now they did do a lot of they did a little pranking with my dad, using my dad. when someone new would move into the district and start becoming friends with my friends or whatever, in the little group there, whatever friend, the clique, I guess you called it back then. They tell them who my dad is, and they build dad up as this mean, don't you want to go over to Justin's house if Harley's there, and it's just made him out to be just an animal. So inevitably they decide, okay, it's time. So they call me up, hey, we're bringing over, we call him John. So I said, all right, and I'd tell my dad, and so they drive in there, they'd say we're gonna stop by Justin's house, and his dad might be there. So just be real quiet, go in, go out. So walks in, dad's standing right there. And like after you walk in the front room in the floor, dad's standing in the middle of the floor. The guy walks in, about wets his pants. And dad gives him a couple of promo looks and a couple of, deep voice, what the hell are you doing here? And dad would break into a smile and everyone started laughing. And the poor kid, he got a joke on him, that's for sure. We ribbed him good.
Did you?
He left the house with a nice big wet spot right around this area here.
Did you get in trouble? And when you were a kid, and if so, did you know you were going to get that promo look and that raspy, scratchy voice when you got home?
Of course I got into trouble. I was a kid. No kids get in trouble at some point in time. I didn't do anything drastic, but yeah, I did this and that. I was really more scared of my mom than my dad, to tell you the truth. My dad would, and if he was in town, if he wasn't in town, he would give me a grilling over the phone. But you could always he respected the fact that he wasn't there and that my mom knew exactly what was going on, so he just kind of was on her side, and I just I was on my own. Now, if he was in town, yeah, I'd get a promo look.
I can't.
I'd if he was in town and I came in. Oh, one time I came in one night. Now my father. You all right?
Yeah. There was just a phone ringing. Go ahead. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, that's okay. Heck, I forgot what I was saying. I thought there was something wrong.
No, it was just I forgot to turn my cell phone off, and it distracted me.
Oh. I don't know.
Yeah,
I forgot what I was talking about now.
You were talking about getting in trouble as a kid, and he gave you a grilling on the.
Oh yeah. One time, my dad nor mom, I was never abused physically or mentally or anything like that. That dad never struck me. People always think that they're like, oh, I bet you never did anything wrong when you were a kid because your dad. And I wasn't scared of him. He was my father. But one time, I don't know, I was probably 15, 16 years old. I came in way too late. Like curfew was probably 11 or something. I probably came at 2 or 3. I don't remember, but it was completely out of hand. Looking back, he deserved to be punished. Well, Dad, the next day, we were standing there, and he was kind of basically telling me that I should never do that again, in his own words. Dad was famous for cussing too, so I'll leave all those words out. But I kind of smarted off to him. I said, for lack of exactly what I said, basically, I'll come home when I damn well please. And so he went with his right hand, and he went like that, like he was just
We lost you there, Justin.
What's that?
Hopefully you'll be back. I'll keep talking till you come back.
What's that?
We lost signal.
I can see you.
Oh, goodness. Okay, cool. Go ahead. All right, you're back now. Go ahead.
Okay. Can you see me now all right?
Keep talking.
Can you see me all right?
Oh, yeah, I can see you now fine. Go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead.
We keep having these breaks. I keep forgetting what the hell I'm talking about.
I can see you.
So anyway, he went to go to just kind of shut your smart mouth type of little slap on the chin, and I moved, and he missed. And that wasn't a good thing to make him miss, because then the left hand came. And about 3 days later, when I woke up, I realized that was a bad idea to smart off to him. That was the only time, and I mean it was open handed, but that was the only time he ever actually
3 days later
whacked me. Well, I'm kidding, but the once I should have just taken the right, because all I did was piss him off when I made him miss, and then the left came, and like he says, one of his famous quotes: "If I hit someone with my left hand and they don't go down, I'll walk around behind them to see what's holding them up."
That's funny. I never heard that one. That's a great story.
That's a famous Harley quote.
Yeah. Here's something I'm not sure too many people. I know somebody probably asked you, but too many people haven't asked, I suppose. But why did you not get in the wrestling business?
I was never an option at the time that type of decision would have been made. When I was like a teenager, my thing was football. I loved to play football, and I did wrestle. I was a state national champion many times in collegiate wrestling. I started wrestling when I was like 7 years old. But when I got to be a teenager, whatever, was right when my dad was traveling. He was the traveling champion. He was putting on 500,000 miles a year, working 300 nights a year, another couple of weeks to travel to get wherever he was wrestling. And then an hour of doing a Broadway every night, and taking the punishment that he took to make other guys look good. Like they say, my dad could make a broomstick look like a good wrestler. My mom and dad just, you're not, no. It's too hard on the body and the family. And I did get a football scholarship, but dad said, you're going to college, and you're gonna, be in business or be in something safe where you can see your family and not be traveling all over the world, not be darn near in a wheelchair by the time you're 45, and litany of things that he told me reasons why. And I understood, and like I said, I played football. I was a Division I scholarship football player, but unfortunately, when I was a sophomore in high school, ironically enough, I broke my neck in a wrestling match. I cracked a vertebra, my third vertebra. And so when I went to go to college to play football, they did a physical, for your scholarship, and they turned my head, and that's all harder. You can turn your head, and I made up an excuse, and it was just working out or something, because I didn't tell anybody about my neck. And they stuck me in a CAT scan machine and found the calcium deposit in my third vertebrae, and that was that. The head coach said, "Justin, you can no longer play football." So that was the end of that. So dad and mom kind of got what they wanted. I ended up going to college and becoming a businessman. But that's what they wanted. I think they were tired of watching me. My mom was probably tired of watching my dad get beat up and me in competition, but combat sport type competition all the time. She'd probably get a little sick of it by then. But it was rough. Football was my
and from
thing.
a financial.
What's that?
Yeah, from a financial perspective, you probably made the right choice.
Yeah. Well, I know from a physical perspective, I watched my father.
You're from, yeah, there you go.
What's that? Can you hear me?
Yeah. We've got a delay going, so forgive me, but yes, I can hear you.
That's all right. I'm used to 7 seconds.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay.
Yeah. At what point in your childhood did you realize that the business was a show, and was Harley the one that smartened you up?
I get asked that quite often. I was never really smartened up. Dad was a little bit different, and I think I tried to enunciate that in my posts and whatever, in that he was a family man. and his family traveled with him. So we were together. I always tell people think, what was it like growing up without a father, this and that, whatever. I was with my dad a lot, just wasn't at home. We traveled with him all the time.
And I've heard you.
A tremendous opportunity. I was so blessed as a childhood being, 10 countries before you're 12 years old, or the other way around. What I can't remember, but to travel all over the world, and when you travel and when you arrive in destinations around the world, you're treated like royalty almost, or whatever, by the Japanese people or wherever we went, whether Singapore, Australia, wherever. Europe, they just had so much respect for him. It was a different way of traveling, put it that way.
I can imagine. And I heard you say on other podcasts that, you basically went everywhere, which I think is what you're saying now.
Mm-hmm.
Did you ever find yourself getting upset that you weren't home to have like traditional friends where you could go to a football game or baseball game, or did wrestling in those days at least consume your life that much?
Yeah, it pretty much consumed my life. I mean, when I left school for a month to go to Japan, it wasn't like my friends forgot about me. They were, well, for lack of a better word, they were a bit envious that that they weren't going, or, that they didn't have those type of opportunities. So when I got back from traveling with my dad, my friends had a lot more questions, and, what's this country like? What's that country like? What are people like? But again, I grew up for the most part with the same friends from second grade on. So by the time we graduated from high school or got to high school or whatever, girls and parties and that kind of stuff was way more important than who my father was.
Yeah, see.
Now, had I just moved into the district at that age and people started finding, oh my God, this guy's son, or whatever, who's this guy's son or father is, that might have been different. But again, I was with the same people for most of my schooling.
Yeah, and I've heard you say on other podcasts too that even when your dad had to go out to wrestle, that you had uncles like Uncle Frank, Bruiser Brody.
Yeah, I do say others. That. I grew up with that's what I say. I grew up with a bunch of 250 to 550 pound uncles. And when Dad would go, one of the reasons that I was in the dressing room a lot was, first of all, especially when I was a kid in the NWA, who was going to tell my dad, you can't have your son in here? And over the years, I developed relationships with the guys. I mean, there were certain guys that when Dad went to wrestle that I played cribbage with, or there was guys that they'd teach me wrestling moves. Some of the guys told me dirty jokes, even though I was 7 or 8 years old. I mean, it was fun. I mean, for a kid, it was like Disneyland. There's all these big, huge guys, and they're just everyone, and then they're going out there and they're pounding on each other and coming back into the dressing room. So, back to your original question about smartening up. Over the years, I just kind of started figuring it out. Because like I said, we traveled with him all the time, so it wasn't. We were together, and it was inevitable that when I was very young, my dad would bleed and get hit with chairs, and I'd scream and cry, and my mom would have to take me out of the arena, and I'd run down to the dressing room after the match was over to make sure that Dad was okay. They had a little thing set up there. If it was going to be a wrestling match, my mom and I might go that night wherever we were in the town, whatever town or wherever we were in the world. And if Dad was wrestling Abdul the Butcher, Mom and I were probably going to a movie that evening or something. Because that's a lot to take. If you can imagine 6, 7, 8, 9-year-old kid, 10, whatever, watching their father just get hit with a metal chair and body slammed on the concrete floor because they didn't have mats around the ring back then. And, you see him and Brody wrestling in the second balcony of the arena Somehow they find their way up there. I don't know. The funniest things I ever seen was they were like, it was in Japan. It was Stan and Brody and Dad and Nick Bockwinkel. And I don't think they were they couldn't have been in the ring more than a minute or two of the whole match. The rest of it was in the crowd, and at one point in time, you could see him trying to, find Dad and Brody in the crowd that's all gathered around, and you could see him hitting each other with chairs. And all of a sudden, Brody disappears. Dad turns around, and starts walking back to the ring, and Brody comes out with a mop. And a wooden mop handle, and hit my dad over the head with a wooden mop handle.
Oh, what a story.
My first thought is, what, did he go find a janitor's closet?
Yeah. And it also, would you tell the fans that unlike today, back in those days, 99% of the time, the baby faces weren't together with the heels, and they didn't sit there and talk over almost everything ahead of time. They basically called it in the ring. So
they never. They never. No, they didn't call. No, they didn't practice, and no, they didn't have anything planned. They went out there and they did what they were good at.
Man, you've had an amazing life, and that only most people can dream of. It's.
Well, I try. That's one of the reasons. Another reason that I do this is I believe that as I realize more and more how much of an impact my father had on so many people's lives, I think that people deserve to know that he was the nicest, kindest, most gentle man and father on earth. I just posted something on Facebook yesterday or the day before, something, a bunch of baby pictures of me and him. And I was just talking about how his body was always like warm. He was just, when we snow skied, he never wore gloves. So when I was a baby and little, and hell, up until he'd say, "Get off me, you're too damn heavy." I'd always, when he'd lay there on the side watching TV, I'd lay on top of him because he was just this it was like a blanket. And so a lot of those pictures, baby pictures, are like hit me asleep on his chest and things like that. And him all with his smile, or you could tell he's like giving me a kiss or whatever, because he was a dad first and a husband first. He dedicated his life to the wrestling business, all of his life to the wrestling business. Like you said, he never had another job from 2 weeks before he turned 16 till the day he died. He never had another job. But you can do both if you dedicate yourself to it. You can be a family man, and you can be a superstar wrestler, athlete, whatever. It takes a lot of work, and it takes someone that has the love and the kindness in their heart to want to do it. Just because you go out there and hit people with chairs and suplex and body slam people doesn't necessarily mean that you're a mean person. It's your job. And my dad's job, how he saw his entire life, was he told there was an autograph line one time, and Dad's holding it up. Tony Atlas was sitting next to Dad, and I don't know how many guys on either side, but Dad's holding the line up because each person he talks to, he gets their name, he does it, whatever, and Tony asked him something, whatever. Tony told the story though to me. Well, he told it on a podcast, and he told it to me personally. He said, "Tony, these people pay good money to come and see us. Some of them might even have to work an extra couple of shifts or take a few bucks out of their savings or something to bring their kids to see us. When these people are standing in front of you, you give them your undivided attention. And when you sign them an autograph, you sign them a good autograph. You sign them an autograph that they can see and they can read. Don't just scribble something on a picture." And so, as much as the guys, "Harley, hurry up. Come on, Harley." "Shut up. Not going any faster. I'm going right now." Because he took time with each fan.
Well, I believe that because he did with me. Got to say two more things before I let you go.
Sure.
Number one, in regards to that picture you have behind you in the bedroom,
Oh,
I have that same photograph in my
wow.
hallway here.
Oh, do you
Yes.
really?
Yeah, I have it. I got it from highspots.com.
Oh.
And and what they did is they had Harley sign it and then sold a bunch of them with Harley's signature, but they also got it authenticated by, in that case, James Spence Authenticators, which is one of the three top autograph um, authenticators. And when I drive by my hallway as I'm going out the door, um, I sometimes catch myself looking at Harley's autograph. And to the point you just tried to make, it was very clear. It was easy to see. It was just something that most wrestlers or anybody else from entertainment just don't do. They scribble whatever they want to scribble. But in his case, you could just tell from the autograph that he took the time and made it professional. I guess because he knew somebody was going to be spending their money on it, you know?
Exactly. I heard a quote, but it really kind of made me think of my father. I think it was by Peyton Manning. And Peyton Manning said, the touchdowns and the Super Bowls and the trophies and the rings and the records don't mean anything. If I could be a hero for someone that day, if I could be a hero for someone on a day that they need a hero, that's why I do this.
Yeah, well,
That's how
I'll tell you, Harley Race was
dad
always a
told my
hero to
dad.
me.
Wait,
And one last
I'll
thing,
show you.
I got
I'll
to,
tell you how we can. Give you one like a kind of a wrap up thing. When I got old enough to
okay.
understand that, obviously, dad got paid for this, but I was. How do you get paid? How do you explain to a kid how you get paid for something like that? Do you get paid by the match? Do you get paid the salary? How do you get? How does this all work? He and I were standing like behind the curtains on the stage, and of course the show's out there, and we were peeking through, watching and whatever, and just kind of out of the blue, one of those father son moments. I said, "Dad, how do you get paid?" And he was taken aback a little bit, but of course back then he said, "Well, sometimes in cash, but often in check." And I'm like, "Well, like, do you get a check from?" I call him Uncle Bubba. Do you get a check from Uncle Bubba, or get a check from Grandpa Mushnick, or do you, or Eddie Grant, whatever? Do you get a check for the guy? And he said, "Come here." And all right, I was in one far. He said, "Look out there." And I did. And I looked out, people going crazy with their signs. And I hate this guy and I love this guy and whatever. And I said, "Yeah, I see him." Dad said, "Those people sign my paycheck." And that pretty much put in perspective for me, not only what the business was about, but the business was supposed to be about, but what my dad was about. He was about giving everything he could
I think
every
that's,
night for his fans.
yeah. And I think anybody that knew him too would say the same thing, not just the people I talk to, but anytime somebody gets interviewed for a DVD or another interview and they mention Harley Race, all his coworkers say the same thing. Not only did he give, his all in the ring, but he enjoyed talking to people. And there's one last thing I need to say in case I don't see you for a while. Back in 2014, I went again to the NWA Legends Fan Fest in Charlotte. And at the end of it, they were cleaning up and all that. And there was a guy there, I guess he was working for the show. And he said, "Hey," he didn't know my name, so he said "kid," even though I was far from a kid at the time. He said, "Hey, you want Harley Race's towel?" And I said something to the effect of, Yes, but I'd rather meet Harley Race. And about that time, here he came. Well, yeah, want to meet Harley Race? Here I am. So, and he took like 20 minutes with me, and I'm trying to let him go, not because I want to leave. I'm trying to let him go because I don't want to take up his time. But he genuinely, to the point you just made, he genuinely was going to make sure that if this was the only time that I met Harley Race, I was never going to forget it. And damn, if that wasn't the case, that was the only time I met Harley Race. And damn if I never forgot that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. In fact, that segues into something that we kind of close on. When I got old enough to, I keep saying that, but the way I grew up very quickly as far as being a world traveler, but I was still a kid, and so when I say as I grew up, I don't remember all the ages on this stuff, but I was old enough to understand the lesson. That's why Dad told me. He said, son, for the rest of your life, people are going to recognize you. They're going to recognize me. They're going to recognize your name or whatever. Unless you're on your way to the emergency room or you're late for work or something, if someone knows who you are or asks who you are or whatever, you give them their 5 minutes. You let them ask their questions. You let them tell their stories. You let them give their opinions. You tell them stories. Let them ask whatever they want. Give them their 5 minutes. And he said, you know why? And I said, well, to be nice. He said, well, yes. But the reason you do that is because it's 5 minutes they'll never forget. And I've lived by that all my life ever since. Whenever someone
and he gave me
I stop by, I just like that. I'll stop by for 5-10
time
minutes.
that day, and you're giving me
What's that?
over an hour, so I'm gonna let you go. But I will never, I'll never forget.
You're cutting in and out a little bit.
That's a perfect way to end it. He taught you well, and
thank you. Yeah,
you still there?
Yeah, I'm here. It's an honor. Hey, I mean, it's an honor. I can't. There's no other way to describe it. I've seen.
So
I've seen high government officials. I've seen CEOs of companies or whatever. I have the honor of when they find out who my father is, seeing these big, powerful men just kind of melt in front of me for a moment and turn into a little boy again and start telling me about how they watched my dad with their dad when they were a little boy and this and that. And here's the CEO of some huge company, and he turns into a little boy and starts telling me about him and his dad. And that's an honor. To have people that respect your father
I can imagine
that they want to stop their life and your life for 5 minutes just to tell me this one little story about one time when they saw my dad wrestle when they were 5 years old. They stopped everything just to tell me that. And Dad always told me to let them do it.
Yeah, and for that few minutes, they turn into a kid too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah, they just turned into a little boy right in front of me.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Justin, for coming on. I'm sorry I
ran so a little bit past. We finally did this.
Yeah, we had a lot of technical problems.
We ought to get a couple of belts made for this. World champions or something.
Exactly.
Well, we're the champions of tenacity. We've been trying to do this for a month, and we finally got it done. So we didn't give up. We'll be the champions.
Yeah, either the champions of tenacity or the champions of StreamYard, one or the other.
Yeah, I don't know if I go that far. I'm not going to put champion. I'm going to put champion computer in my name in any sentence.
I understand that. Well, thank you so much, Justin. And
sir, it's good to talk to you.
I really
appreciate everyone out there listening. I hope you had a good time. Maybe learn a little bit. Rusty's a wonderful man, and I look forward to being his friend for a long time.
I appreciate that, Justin. Keep in touch, and if obviously I'll talk to you before then, but when you get the book going, I would like maybe have you and or even your mom on sometime talk about the book or whatever.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. It'll be well publicized. But every podcast, of course, every podcast I've ever done said, wants me on there when I do come out with that book. It'll be well publicized. I can't call everyone and say, hey, it's coming out Thursday. I can't call everyone, but you'll find out. And when you do, call me up and I'll get on the show again.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Justin.
Or anytime you'd like me, Rusty, just give me a call.
All right. I appreciate that. And same here, and continued success to you and your mom. And we'll look forward to getting you back on one of these days. And please feel free to keep in touch, not only for the podcast, but on the telephone too, would you?
I will, absolutely. Look forward to it.
All right. Thanks so much now. Take care.
All right. Thank you too, Rusty. We'll talk to you later. Thank you, folks.
All right. Now, bye-bye. Let me see if I can. Okay, it stopped. Hey, Justin, that was good, man. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Hey there? Are you there?